Hi, this is Dan. Today I'm going to be talking about passivating your brewing equipment. I bought a new brew pot, really beautiful pot I got on Amazon for a good deal. And part of the instructions said, when you first use it, make sure to clean it and passivate it. Because it's made out of 303 stainless steel. Well, I got thinking about that because I work in an industry that serves the food service industry a lot. We make a lot of equipment for food service. And I know that anything that comes in direct contact with food has to be type 316 stainless steel. And so I started doing a little research, looked out at MasterCar, and a pot like this made out of 316 was about 800 bucks. So I'm like, yeah, I think I'll figure out a way to make this 303 pot work. So looking around, and people were saying that you could use Barkeeper's Friend to passivate or Star Sand to passivate. That seems to be all anecdotal, and I could not find any evidence that that actually works. So what I did is I got on the ASTM website and looked up how to actually passivate type 303 stainless steel. In that research I found a lot of interesting stuff. There's been a lot of testing about type 303 stainless steel cook pots, because that's what, if you go to the store, that's what you're going to get. If you buy a stainless steel pot, it's probably 303, even though the FDA says it's not okay for food contact. Don't get that, but that's the way it is. Been a lot of studies, long-term exposure of high acid stuff in 303 pots versus 316 pots. They found that your 303 pots, when you are cooking, say, pasta sauce, is what they did for the test, you're going to leach out 10 times as much chromium and sulfites into the spaghetti sauce from a 303 unpassivated pot as a 316 pot. One thing that was interesting, though, is the 303 passivated pot was almost as good as the 316. So what I decided to do is keep this pot, and I'm going to passivate everything. Well, the good thing is that it's pretty easy to do if you look up the procedure. On the ASTM site, there are two recognized ways to passivate 303 stainless steel. One is a nitric acid bath, which I didn't want to do, that's nasty stuff. But you can also do a citric acid. The advantage of citric acid is that you can dump it down the drain when you're done. And it's not hazardous at all. It's basically about twice the, what we're going to be making is about twice the acid level of orange juice, for example. So 10% by weight citric acid to distilled water. So I've got a 8-gallon pot here. I'm probably going to put about 6.5 gallons of water in it because I have all the other stuff, my cooling coil, my stir, my hop spider, everything in there. So I figure I'm going to put 6.5 gallons of water in here, 5 pounds of citric acid at 150 degrees for 30 minutes should passivate it. Nobody knows exactly how passivation works, but basically the thought is it leaches out the chromium and sulfites for the first, couple hundred atomic layers, and then lays down about 1/10 millionth of an inch thick layer of oxide on the surface. Won't change the look or anything. It's kind of like anodizing aluminum, if you're familiar with that. Hard anodized aluminum, lays down a layer of aluminum oxide that makes it hard, makes it impervious to chemicals, makes it okay for food use. Same thing we're doing with our stainless steel here. So I'm going to start out cleaning everything. You got everything really clean, because if there are coolants, trace mold release films, anything in this pot or anything that's in it, this citric acid bath can actually leach that out and deposit it on the stainless steel surface. You do not want that to happen. So you got to get everything really clean. So we're going to use trisodium phosphate. I'm going to put about 2 gallons of warm water in here and a half cup of TSP. The citric acid I got from MasterCar. You should be able to get it at any good chemical supply store or even Amazon, but if you're like me and you worry about, the quality and purity of stuff you're finding on Amazon like this, I decided to go to MasterCard for that. Again, with my trisodium phosphate, but this I'd feel comfortable buying on Amazon or Menards or wherever because it's a standard product. Okay, so I'm going to get a couple gallons of warm water in here, put in a half cup of trisodium phosphate, get everything clean, and we'll be back. Okay, so got about 2 gallons of warm water in here. I'm going to add in half a cup of trisodium phosphate. That should do. Okay, and now I'm going to make sure everything gets really nice and clean with this. Get all that old mold release, all that old, any cutting fluid or anything that might have been on here in the process of putting these handles on. These are riveted handles, which I really like. Not spot welded. This is a really quality pot. I got a really good price, I gotta say. Amazon's really good for something. My hot spider here. Now, usually you don't want to mix types of stainless steel when you're doing this, but I'm fairly confident that everything in here is type 303 or type 304. That's the most common. The most common types of stainless steel you're going to find. So if it doesn't say specifically what grade of stainless steel you're getting, it's a pretty safe bet you're getting 303 or 304. You gotta make sure everything's really clean because you don't want to deposit any of that stuff onto your surfaces. There's a thermocouple I got. I do brew in bags, so this thermocouple is perfect. It'll sit right down in the middle of the bag. And give me a real good solid reading on from my mash. And then I cut a little hole in the lid for the thermocouple, and then I cut a little slot in the lid for the chiller. So that way when everything's done, I can chill it and still have the lid on. Keep bacteria and stuff from getting there. So we're going to rinse this off. Rinse this out really good and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. Got everything nice and clean, rinsed off really good. So now I'm going to start the passivating process. Okay, I was right. It took about 6 3/4 gallons or so. I got about that much left from my 7 gallons I had. So now we're going to just get this up to 150 degrees. And we'll see where we're at. Okay, we're at 150 degrees. So we're going to turn the burners off and add the citric acid. I'm going to use my my paddle to stir it in. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area when you do this. You don't want to be breathing concentrated fumes, even as something as relatively mild as citric acid. Make sure that didn't lower the temp too much on me. Looks like we're about 145, so I'll probably just juice a little bit here. Just kind of monitor it. We're going to leave it for a half hour. Just kind of monitor it every once in a while. Add a little heat if you need. Want to keep it right around as close to 150 as possible. You're not going to get the nice temperature stability of if you're mash and brew in bag, because you have all that solid mass of solids in there holding your heat. So a situation like this where you're all water is going to be a little bit trickier to maintain heat on, so I'm going to have to watch a little bit. Okay, so it's been a half hour. Everything in there should be nice and passivated now. So we're going to drain it out, and then we're going to rinse it really good and dry it really good. And then we'll take a look and see, make sure we didn't get any deposits of any gunk in there or anything, and give it a last look-see before we call it good. Okay, we got it all dried out and rinsed off. I did use some baking soda in the rinse just to do an extra neutralization. It looks fantastic, and as you can see, nothing discolored. Everything looks nice and shiny, and we should have a real good deposit layer in there of some passivation. So we're calling this project done. Thanks a lot and good luck.